as we know, I've been following this since January 2 years ago, right? A year and a half ago. I'm calling this the wiggly words of Aaron Sherinian. Let me see if I can move my slides here. Yeah. So let's see. I think we went. Yeah, there we go. On Mormonish, I was just so curious about the whole scenario that we'll kind of go into, touch on, that I even did, I think, 2 different episodes. Where's the new LDS Church spokesman, Aaron Sherinian? Because I'm sure a lot of you are aware he was, hired and then disappeared. So basically what happened in a nutshell very quickly is that in January of 2024, or was it 2023? Now I can't remember. It's been 18 months. Anyway, Aaron Sherinian, this new person, is the church spokesman. Instantly, people started looking at his social media, and he had a lot of posts that indicated that he was an ally. He was at a pride parade. He had some other kinds of statements. This, of course, sort of became a flashpoint in, all of Mormondom, where a lot of us were like, oh my gosh, does this signify a change in the church? They've hired an ally to be a spokesman. They must have known, right, that he was an ally in order to, make him the spokesperson. And it means there's a change. Yes.
I'm just noticing he's wearing a purple tie.
Yeah, I'm saying there's a lot of signals here. I'm still reading a lot into this. So you're absolutely right. And I know you guys covered this very well on the Mormonism After Dark. So we're just
But we wanted you there. You couldn't be there. We actually asked if you would come on, and you were otherwise occupado.
Friday night, occupado.
I would like to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. And so on the other side of the coin, a lot of more faithful LDS were like, there's no way the church would hire this guy who's an ally. We refuse to accept that this is the direction the church is going. So a lot of us were like, well, then this is sort of a flashpoint. When Aaron starts speaking for the church, making statements like his predecessor did, Eric Hawkins, we'll know that the church is going this direction of, more inclusive, more accepting of LGBTQ. If he doesn't make any statements, we'll know, oh dear, they kind of made a mistake, or they didn't know that this would, be out in the open. So we were very curious to watch what would happen. Basically, what happened is Aaron Sherinian disappeared. I even started a little ticker. Do you remember that? It's been 327 days since we've heard from Aaron Sherinian. He literally fell off the face of the earth. And we'll play a clip in a second to kind of his point of view. I did do some things behind the scenes to kind of determine if he was still working for the church. Things on his LinkedIn didn't change. He was still listed as his former company. It was really strange. He put out a statement that said, I'm so excited to work for the church. Everything exploded on social media, and then nothing. And he didn't change some of his, things that you would change if you were a global director of communications for a global faith.
He was being very still.
And this is what we're going to see in the clip. But so I had my co-host Landon call the church office building and ask for Aaron Sherinian. And he kind of went through a phone tree, and we were able to learn that he did have an office there. He had an admin. We were able to leave a message. So we're like, okay, so he is there, and he has a presence, and he has an office, kind of putting it down in our little detective notebook. I had another experience where I ran into someone, I'll be very vague about this. This would only happen to me, who was very close to the situation and was able to tell me that Aaron Sherinian was directing things as far as statements and the way things were handled from, say, Doug Anderson, right? So he had his fingers in the pie.
Is this at an Applebee's restaurant?
I'm not saying another word, and you know why. Does this to me on the air. Anyway, what I'm saying is that he was there. He was in the background, but he was never making a front-facing statement, because all of us were watching like sharks, right? As soon as he said something speaking for the church, we're all like, look, an ally is speaking for the church, right? So he laid low forever. There was a little article where he kind of showed up at a meeting, maybe like a year later nothing. But suddenly we understand that he's going to speak at Fair. And suddenly in the middle of the night, was it Thursday night or Friday night? Whatever it was, last week,
Wednesday night,
I come across the video of him speaking. They've posted it. Of course, they took it down right after that. But I was
Why do you think they took it down?
Probably because I recorded it and started putting stills out. I don't know.
Right, because they realized the import of what Aaron Sherinian said.
Yeah, I don't think I have that much power, but yeah, definitely.
I did not everywhere.
Exactly. I did not put the clips out. I'm always nervous about stuff like that, but you guys showed them, which was great. So maybe before we go to, I'm just going to touch on a few little things. Maybe now's a good time to play the clip where, in being asked a couple questions, he gave a speech and then he answered questions. He explained why he was just quiet for like over 18 months, why he wasn't there anymore.
Very skilled and very knowledgeable at what they do, in addition to being spiritual and spiritually minded. So that brings up our next question. This is a much more difficult question. So when you first came on board the church, there was a lot of online flack, should we say, and people I've gotten a few questions here asking directly whether or not you support the family proclamation, and how was that for you when you first came on board? Has it improved? And how do you deal with that?
I've learned a number of things, and I've taken counsel from some people that I admire and love and that I sustain. And one of the things that I've learned is to study carefully something that doesn't come natural to me, and that's in Doctrine and Covenants 101, I believe, the idea about being still. And sometimes I thought that being still meant doing nothing. But being still is active. And it means allowing for some things to happen so that some better things can take place. So you use the term flack. I'll call it dialogue. I'll call it some critique. I'll call it whatever you want to call it. One of the things that I've learned is that when there's, in the internet age and in our current reality, we want to react immediately. That's a tactic in certain parts of communication. But when it comes to you, sometimes the best thing to do is to be still. There's real value in giving a moment for you to reflect and to let the other people that are talking with or maybe at you some time. The other thing that I've learned is that I got some quick advice when there were things coming at me. And I'm talking to a room of people who know what it's like to put yourself out there. So you receive you have the same sort of reality perhaps in your own life. Someone said to me in a well-meaning way, well, don't take it personally. There was nothing more personal. I take it personally because I think the person who's taking issue with me or who's criticizing me or who has something to serve me, they're probably taking it very personally. And that's rough. But if I really want to be a peacemaker, if I really want to follow his counsel, I probably have to take it personally. Not to react or be rude, not to be reactionary or ruthless, but to be real and to say to myself, that person on the other end of the line, if you will, the proverbial line, is expressing something very personal. And what is it they're trying to say? They love the Lord, and they're expressing something that they're working through. So maybe one of the best things that I can do is not to be weak, not to let things that are untrue go unresolved or unacknowledged. But if I'm going to be a peacemaker, I have to see that it's personal for them. And there's something driving a question. I hope that answers the question.
I think we can stop there.
I've been very clear.
Part of it. So, but again, I bring up, he is a global communications director. Yes.
Just so that you know, that is right at the point. He's nowhere near done talking.
Oh, no, I know.
Answered the question.
He says the same thing.
Well, this is the point at which he addresses the issue about whether he supports the
and I'm going to go into that. I have a slide on that. That's why I cut it there. So I just wanted to say one more time about stillness. When you're the global communications director for a global faith, it's not the time to be still, right? You need to make statements. You need to come out and say things. Your predecessor, Eric Hawkins, did that. He made statements all the time. Doug Anderson, sort of a second in command, he's the one that started making all the statements in the last 18 months. And I do know behind the scenes that Aaron Sherinian was guiding and crafting those statements. So he just didn't do anything forward facing, which I thought was very interesting. So you're right, RFM, a series of questions that were like really hard hitting right at him. I'm really surprised that he let himself get in this situation because, again, the whole issue is, are you an ally? Are you going to, demonstrate your allyship as you work for the church? So exactly what you said, he was asked at FAIR, directly, do you support the family proclamation, right? The proclamation to the world. And after he went, on and on about being still and all of that, in answer to that direct question, he said, I've been very clear. My role, my job, it's to support the leaders of the church and to be a servant of the Lord. So I don't know. What do you think about that answer?
My job is to support the family proclamation. Of course I support it.
Yeah, but not really. Here's the thing. People who are on the faithful side are criticizing him for not coming out and saying he supports it. Those of us more on the other side are saying, are you trying to send us a message? You didn't say that you supported it. You said it's your job. Wink, wink. Maybe that's a way that you say, I have to sort of, allude to the fact that I support it because it is my job and it's my role. So he really said nothing to satisfy either side, left everybody kind of wondering. So.
If you mind if I jump in here for just a second?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you, but thought about that.
So you said, how did he get himself into this? First off, if it's the people that he sustained who told him to be still, he's unable to not get out of being still until the people who he sustained have told him he can start doing something other than be still. In other words, this isn't just a coincidence. This is the moment that LDS leadership chose to unveil Aaron Sherinian, number one. Number two, he said, it's my job. We all could say that. Like I could say, it's my job to put content out every week that helps people wake up from the messiness of Mormonism, but it actually is my job. When he says that, there are members of the church who, in response to questions like this, say, it's my job to sustain the brethren. And we know what that means.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're paid to do it. As RFM's laughing about, Sherinian is telling you, it's my job. I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. I get insurance. I get a bonus at the end of the year for Christmas. I get all the fun things. I get 2 weeks vacation. It's my job to sustain the family proclamation. He doesn't answer the question. He skirts around it. But what he says is, I will do whatever my employer tells me to do in these kinds of situations within reason. And I get paid to sustain the family proclamation. So I do.
Yeah. And for the last year and a half, I have visions of George Costanza going into that office with that one file every day. That's what he's been doing.
Penske file. He has been doing the Penske file. I know.
Thank you. And his problem was saying my role, my job, it's to support the leaders of the church, is that it can be sending a message of, oh, I'm on your side, but it's also the message of acquiescing.
Yes.
He's signaling he is acquiescing.
Yep. No, and that's the problem that I especially watched Greg Mattson of Quick Media. And he's like, really? Our church spokesman cannot say, I support the proclamation. He seemed pretty incensed about that. That he would not come out and say those words.
This has been blowing up for a few days now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how is it that the director of communications can't get the word out if he's been misunderstood?
I don't know.
If he misspoke and would like to clarify the record.
Exactly. And it seems to get worse. And I know you guys showed the videos, but I like to kind of read what he says. It kind of hits home. So another thing that he's asked, a very direct question, and these are questions from the audience. The moderator was reading them. So here's a question from the audience to Aaron. How do I try to support my LGBTQ brothers and sisters while standing for the family proclamation to the world? I find it hard to balance that line. Mm-hmm. There's a reason they're asking Aaron this, because they saw the social media. He seemed to be an ally. He seemed to be doing that initially before he became still for all that time. So Aaron says, I think the answer is love. I think that's what I've learned from this room. I think the answer is love. It's obedience to what is truth. It's following our prophet. It's loving people in our lives, which is just like stringing some random things together. It's love, but you have to take a hard line like the church. It's love, but you have to take a hard line like the prophet. What did you guys think of that answer?
It's balderdash. He's a hack.
He's not actually giving you anything useful. Exactly. He's not actually telling you any steps you could take. He wants to tell you, I sustain the brethren, but I don't support the family proclamation. That's what he's saying. And in this sense, And in this instance, he's saying, I want to be a temple recommend holding, job holding Mormon in this entity's organization. And I want to be able to sustain LGBT people and acknowledge that they don't have it fair. And this is the best I can do.
Yep. No, I've been looking for him, stalking him for all this
Yes,
time.
you have. You've been a fan from the very
I've been a
beginning. You thought this was
fan,
going
I
to be super Aaron.
Exactly. And now to hear him actually come out and speak, I was kind of like, wah, 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 wah. I almost would have more respect if he really would just say, I believe in the proclamation. But he's not even doing that. It's very, like I called this segment, the wiggly words. So here's another wiggly thing that he talked about. He was asked directly about the recent talk online that the church pays influencers. Of course, we've covered that several times. It's a big deal. Does the church pay influencers to, put out content that they can use for missionary tools and to promote the church?
Did he say yes or no, Rebecca?
Well, it's going to take 2 paragraphs for me to let you know what he said, and you still won't know at the end. He said, I'll elaborate on it, but I will also say that in an attempt to be as frank and as transparent as possible, the church, through spokespeople, some of who are here, has made it clear, there are so many commas in this, that the church does not pay for or enter into brand partnerships. Now that's wiggly, because we're not talking about a brand partnership. We're talking about paying somebody to create content that the church uses on their own site.
He's such a bad liar, isn't he?
Yeah, as was reported by some online, right? And I agree, we may have used that term brand partnership just because we didn't understand, but a brand partnership is where you pay somebody to put out their own content and look like they're naturally speaking about a product. I use this every day. I wish somebody would give me a brand deal. Send me any of your products, everybody. Anyway, but to pay an influencer, that person creates a video, the church puts it out. So
he's looking for one small aspect of this that the church is not doing, so he can deny it and try and get rubes to think he's denied the whole thing.
No, that's it. And then he goes on, he says, I'm not picking a fight with those people. I'm not trying to disagree with them publicly. And I guess we are those people.
I'm just trying to lie my ass off and hope I get away with it.
What the church does do, of course, he's going to tell us what the church does, is engage with people who are the very best at what they do. So we, the church, can transparently use that content or use some of those ideas as we express with other people. So, Bill, do they pay influencers or not?
And they pay them for it. That's what he didn't say.
That's the part he didn't say. That's what I was trying to ask Bill. There's no yes or no answer. That's exactly it. And so I, of course, and we've talked about all of this before, but not only do we have multiple LDS faithful influencers who say, yes, we are paid. We don't have a brand deal, but we are paid for our content, as we should be. If you're going to, put together something for the church that they use, you should be paid. And that's a fact. So I don't know why he just couldn't say that. He hung his hat on that brand deal. It's not a brand deal. They're not deceiving people by saying, hey, it's me, David Snell. Here's my own channel and I this and that. No, he's creating something and it's put on the church's channel. Even the church's own, and I can't believe there's actually a job called this, Director of Reputation Management. Okay. This guy, Derek Westra.
It's right. It's right down the hall from Director of Reputation Repair.
Which is a much bigger office. That's right. Because the management doesn't do their job. But I won't read through all of this, but this was in the Tribune and they clearly explain they do hire people to create content that the church puts out on its own channel. And there is nothing wrong with that. One thing I think is very funny is when David Snell said, they pay us for our work, not our testimonies. Well, when you're a promoter of the church, your work is your testimony and faith. So again, a little bit of splitting hairs, a little bit of wiggle room. But for Aaron to just flat out say, we don't pay people, that's not true. There are whole departments. We've talked to people that work in their media relations where they pay usually through a middle company, a media company, they pay them. So I don't know why he's so hell-bent on having us not know that. And I will say there's nothing wrong with it. Do you know that the Pope just a few weeks ago had a huge Jubilee for digital missionaries and Catholic influencers? They invited all the influencers to come in and said, take pictures, post this. We need to get everybody excited about Catholicism again. And it's working. So this is just what people are doing. I don't know why Aaron can't say it. So there was one more thing that I thought was really interesting that he said. And the question was, there are people still questioning the validity of the Tim Ballard statement. Now, if you guys remember this, a statement came out in Vice magazine where the church denounced Tim Ballard, and then, he was excommunicated soon after. Aaron says, this is the question, is that a real statement? Now, in Aaron's defense, he was hired 3.5 months after that statement came out. Okay. Statement came out in September. He was hired in January. He says, I hope, so I'm not going to address that specific issue because I'm not sure what specifically it's referring to.
Bullshit. He's the worst liar I've ever seen. And I've represented some.
I just need to ask you, do you think and this was big, people questioned whether this was from the church. They leaked it into this. People still question it. Do you think someone that was hired a few months after this statement, this extremely controversial statement was made, do you think that person would be aware of what had happened in the last couple months in the church? He hasn't been
doing anything else for a year and a half, and he's not aware of what happened 3.5 months before he signed up. He was existing in a vacuum somewhere.
Well, he was in his office with his admin. Landon found out. So, but again, here it is, September. Mormon Church denounces Tim Ballard morally unacceptable activities. Here's the statement, if you guys haven't read it for a while. But I just feel like that was a strange answer, because I think he should have said, maybe I wasn't really involved in that, but he said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes.
What
the
Tim
whole
Ballard
point, by the way, Rebecca, my opinion is the whole point was to avoid the issue, because it leads back to Elder Ballard in the church.
Exactly.
His goal is to not even open the door, take the first step down the path that leads to a place he doesn't want to go. And the same with the other thing where he was talking, or not talking rather, about his support of the family proclamation, because he doesn't want to start talking about that, because it leads right to the part of the family proclamation that deals with what he may have used to have been an ally for.
Yeah, no, and I think we saw that in every single answer. But to me, the worst one is Tim Ballard. Who's that? I just don't believe that somebody that is called as the global communications leader would not be aware of what had happened a few months prior. Here it is. He was hired in January. That statement came out in September. Now, after he made that very short statement I just read, I don't know what that is. He says, however, you can find anything on the church website. And he went on for about 5 minutes about how incredible the church website is. You can look up any information. The answers are there if you search for them. They do a great job of being really transparent, putting everything out there. So I just
the same old line about the church isn't hiding anything. It's all there, buried 3 clicks deep on the website.
Exactly. So I typed in Tim Ballard Vice statement, nothing there. Nothing came up whatsoever. I typed in some different versions of that. So anyway, it was just very interesting to have him suddenly pop up. Here he is performing his duties as he should, very forward facing. But the words that were coming out of his mouth were just, I think, left a lot of us confused. And believe it or not, kind of upset people on either side of the spectrum. The faithful saying, why can't you be more direct, and say, yes, I believe in the proclamation. And everyone else saying, if you're trying to, tell us something in kind of a subtle way, I don't know. It's very interesting. And that's my final thing. Who, me? Wiggly words. So, and you guys covered it very well on Mormonism After Dark. Everybody should go over there and pick that one up if you haven't seen it. But just, I don't want to say disappointing, but just not what I thought it would be when we finally heard from Aaron.
I'll say disappointing then. What do you think, Bill?
If I can go back a slide here. The thing that, and again, I'm still not 100% clear on this, but my understanding was, and if it's true, this answer doesn't fit. And I said this on Mormonism After Dark, which is, if the influencer, part of what that influencer understands the assignment as in order to get paid is that they post this video on their own branded channels.
That's a brand deal. Yeah, they're saying the church does not do that. They don't do it.
No, I think you're misunderstanding me. So if the church reached out to these guys and said, make us a video, don't post it anywhere, just send it to us, and we're going to use it in the next I'm a Mormon campaign, for instance. I actually don't think I have a real big problem with that.
I don't either. That's what I said. I do not have a problem, but you still are paid. So you're paid. It's okay to say, yes, we pay people. Yeah.
What I understand happens, though, is that these influencers, at least their understanding and the way it worked for them, was they created a video for their branded content and sent it on to the church and got paid. In other words, if I went on to TikTok for these creators, I would find these videos that they got paid for.
They're saying no.
They're saying it did not
They're
happen.
saying no. That's what the church is saying, and that's what the faithful influencers are saying. They're saying when they're asked to create something, they create it and they give it to the church. To do it otherwise, it would be more of a brand deal where you, on your own channel, your own platform, kind of fit into your daily life. You know, you're brushing your teeth. You know what I really love? The Lord, right? And that's, people are way more susceptible to that because it looks so natural. Although, as we saw from the one gal, seems to be more scripted. They're literally telling you word for word what to say. So yeah, it's a fine line, but there is payment.
I'm well aware that the church owned the content, that they were able to do whatever they wanted with it. If the only place I can find these videos of these influencers across the entire internet is on a production by the church solely for the church, I don't know that I have a problem with it. Now, Sherinian's still sidestepping the issue. Yeah. He's still talking around it. Yeah. But again, I would have to see that. I would have to see or not, sort of understand how these influencers understood the assignment and where that video first showed up.
Yep, I agree.
Anyway.
Yep. No, that's a very good point. And it's a distinction, although maybe not such a big distinction. But yeah, if anyone knows, if anyone has experience with this, let us know, because wiggle words.
I don't see any problem with it either, but you know something? The church is so tight when it comes to money. They got more of it than God, but they are so tight with it that, they come up with all these crazy things that I don't think there are any members. There must be some somewhere. I don't think there are a lot of members who would bat their eyelids twice if they find out the church pays people to do promotional videos for them who are already popular, I mean, that we had a whole string of commercials. I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say, some of the people that they're offering these to are people that are not super well known. And so I think the idea is that you would come across this and think it was just a genuine person brushing their teeth and saying, I love the Lord, right? That it is a little scripted and it looks too natural. So somebody might be pulled in. But I mean, this is just how everybody's doing it. They're saying this is why religion is on the rise, just because of the social media influence. People are attracted.
So caveat emptor,
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to believe everything? For crying out loud. Anyway, I'm a lot more, I think, laissez-faire on this.
Yeah.
If I'm using that French expression correctly, the one I learned in 9th grade.